First, you see how stigmatization is perhaps the left's most common and useful tool. Always has been. I mean, even as they claim that they want people to be free to live their lives without judgment, the truth is that they have a very rigid idea about what sorts of lifestyles should be embraced. And the standard is very simple, actually. It's not complicated. We should celebrate any and all lifestyles that would not be traditionally considered normal. Okay? That's the one rule. So live how you want, just don't be normal. That's why they use a term like fringe subculture to describe a housewife in an apron who would, but they would never put such a label on a man in a wig and a skirt standing up to pee in the women's restroom. He's not part of a fringe subculture. Instead, a 25-year-old woman with 2 kids and a husband baking a casserole, she's the fringe weirdo, the degenerate pervert. Now, if that same woman was doing all the same things, but happened to actually be a man, then she, or he in this case, would be revered as a bold and powerful woman daring to live her life as she wishes. The problem with the actual real woman living this way is that she, again, is normal. And while they shame normalcy as perverse and they treat perversion as normal, they somehow have succeeded in convincing many conservatives to not respond in kind, as we should. So they will openly call stay-at-home moms a fringe subculture while insisting that we must never use such language to describe lifestyles that are actually degenerate. And again, many conservatives willingly play along with this. They willingly play by this rule. The left accuses the trad wife of engaging in a political act. But the truth is that, what they're really angry about is they're angry that she isn't engaging in a political act. She's simply living in a way that is healthy and traditional, and she's prioritizing her family. She is not turning her entire existence into a political statement. She is focused on things deeper and more meaningful than that. And that is what infuriates them. Remember that these are people who've structured their whole lives around opposing traditional values. They're not even pursuing happiness or fulfillment or meaning. They'll settle for misery so long as their misery is a protest against the value systems they despise. Except that ultimately their misery only confirms and supports that very same value system. And that's where the woman in the video had it right, I think. People are deeply dissatisfied with the life that leftism has given them. These so-called trad wives, they grew up in a society that told them that men and women are the same, that we ought to have exactly identical roles in society, that it's demeaning, it's oppressive to prioritize raising children and caring for your family, that fulfillment is found in serving your boss rather than your spouse, that a strong and independent woman is one who depends on her employer rather than her husband. They were raised in a culture that takes all of these ideas for granted. They were socialized and conditioned to accept them as gospel truth, and many of them did for a time, and then discovered that it was all a lie. The most basic problem with leftism is that it is just hollow at its core. It doesn't have an answer, or at least not a satisfying answer, to the question of why we're here on this earth and what we're supposed to be doing with our time. This ambiguity, this lack of answers, is presented to us as freedom. But it's the freedom of being lost in the woods, the freedom of having no idea where to go or why. And that's not freedom, that's abandonment. And this is what has happened to multiple generations of Americans. They've been brought down a path with promises of happiness and fulfillment around the corner, and then they were just left there, abandoned. This is the source of much of the epidemic of despair, what we now call depression in our society. It stems from this, not from mental illness, but from this. That you have millions of Americans that were led down a path. They said, well, come this way, don't go that way. Okay, that's the way that all of your ancestors went. That's the way that people for thousands of years went. Don't go that way, come this way instead. And all these people listened, and they said, okay, I'll go that way. And then one day they looked around and they said, well, where are we exactly? What's the point of this? Where were you taking us? We're just lost here now. We're stuck. So the people who are returning to traditional lives, who are making the radical decision to focus on their families and their marriages and so on. These are people simply deciding to live with some sense of direction, to live with meaning. Okay, that's what they're doing. They're not making some white supremacist radical political statement. They are reclaiming meaning in their lives. And they are certainly happier for it.